This is going to be the official start of the VOD. I'll reintroduce Big Red Machine and CIS Rejects. Unfortunately, you missed the draft because I lost connection to Azubu, and so the recording stopped. But we'll be back into it, and hopefully we won't have that happen again. So, into this game, and it should be a pretty darn good one. And incredibly aggressive draft from Big Red Machine, and the times I've seen them succeed, it's not only when they're able to pick aggressively, but play aggressively. So we'll have to see if they're going to be inside their wheelhouse. The draft suggests that they will, and as a general rule, although I think CIS Rejects draft is definitely not bad at all and very well could run away with this game, Big Red Machine have a Huskar. How can you not like that? We'll have to see how it plays out.
Absolutely. And starting off right here at the top in the northeast of the map, we're going to have Flo, who's going to be playing the Clockwork. TMW is going to be on that Shadow Fiend. We have ZXC, who's going to be playing the Huskar with the little 2 carrots to the side there as well. Slander going to be on your Dazzle. And last but not least, we got Scream, who's going to be playing the Undying.
And for CIS Rejects, we're going to have Chaos on the Ursa, Always Wanna Fly on the Lena, Dragonite's going to be handled by Iceberg, Vanscore on the Winter Wyvern, and last but not least, our Darkseer will be played by Goritz as he TPs up to the top lane very quickly to place out his ward. This ward is going to block the pull through camp, which makes it a lot easier as an offlaner to manage your lane equilibrium, especially as a Darkseer, somebody who can already push and pull the lane to make it very hard for Big Red Machine to control. That's going to help him out quite a bit. For now, Big Red Machine are grouped up as a 4-man unit going to look to secure this top rune spot for the Shadow Fiend, and a similar rotation down towards bottom as they'll look to secure a very fast bottle for their Dragon Knight.
Definitely, and that's what you need to be able to do in this type of lane when you're going to end up going up against the Shadow Fiend there. You want to be able to make sure that you're not eating too many of those raises to the face when you're trying to melee last hit. I'm also going to say here that I do think that CIS Reject's style here of being able to try and keep people off the towers, both with the Winter Wyvern as well as with the Darkseer, just sort of reapply the pressure back the way of Big Red Machine. If they get hit with a dive, they're going to have to pretty much dive under tower with not a ton of creeps because of the push and counter push that CIS Rejects have. So I like the draft out of CIS Rejects. I think they knew that Big Red Machine was going to go aggressive, considering how the last game went and considering the fact that it almost worked. So probably at this point in time, Big Red Machines are feeling okay about the situation that they're at, and I think that CIS Rejects are as well. It's just going to come down to execution at this point in time, and hopefully at least this Huskar doesn't get out of control.
Yeah, that would definitely flip the tables very handily into the side of Big Red Machine. We're going to see the Dazzle and the Huskar being a dual lane, and Undying for now is going to be that hero babysitting the Shadow Fiend. This is not the usual role you'll see Undying in, but he's going to post up very hard onto Vanscore as he starts spamming out those decay stacks. This is going to secure TMW a little bit of extra help to secure those early souls, and if you have the early soul advantage against the Dragonite, it's incredibly hard to CS, and with the decay being stolen, Dragonite's only at 43 damage. Shadow Fiend already has a lead, even if he's only on 3 stacks of that Necro Mastery. This is so annoying, and not something that you see very often. Look at that 3rd stack, and Dragonite's at a max HP, about 300. Now that one of those is going to wear off, he's going to feel a lot more comfortable inside this lane. Now TMW might be the one in a little bit of trouble, but for now, Big Red Machine are getting a significant edge. Although now that the lane is pushing under tower, we'll have to see how many of these that DK can secure, and the answer is none, as the Shadow Fiend's able to deny that. That's hard. Now Undying can go back up to the top lane and scream, can do whatever he wants, really. The Shadow Fiend has been started in such a way that this lane matchup against the DK should be pretty easy, as long as he can deal with Vanscore's constant harass. That Arctic Burn does do quite a number.
Yeah, he's already down to half HP off the back of that, actually. Really, really frustrating to have to play against that. And Always Wanna Fly down in the bot lane. We haven't really talked about this one too much. I don't think... Maybe, actually, Iceberg Dota needs to be a little bit careful here. Undying is still sticking around and has actually opted to take Soul Rip instead. I think that this makes a lot of sense. You don't necessarily want to push your lane too hard when you're in the mid lane there, because then the Shadow Fiend, it's a lot more difficult for him to actually get the CS while the zombies are spawning everywhere. But they're opting to put the Ursa solo in the safe lane, with Lena sort of sitting to the side trying to deward, and had a bit of a tough time dewarding this this one off to the side here by the Observer, and probably is going to opt to pull now after this. Hopefully she's able to kill it before the creep camp spawns, I would imagine, but
Yeah.
a very nice ward there by the Radiant offlaner, or the Dire offlaner.
Yeah, if we take a look at where that box ends up, these 2 trees are pretty much the corner of the box, so it ends up right about there. So a really good sentry ward and a really good obs on both sides. It goes to show experience when you know the generally good ward spots, and Still, it secured Clockwork some experience in lane. Even though now he's going to have to deal with pulls, his lane is also pushing out, so pulling might not be the best idea for them, as the Ursa would have to take a lot of damage for it, but now that is an option. They are going to decide to go for that route, but Clockwork is having a good time, and it's really hard to stop a Clockwork from having a good time. Even if you can pull, Clockwork could always just box off the creeps inside the tree area and ensure himself the lane equilibrium and experience under tower. So he'll be able to have an impact, and the same probably can't be said for the Darkseer, although the Darkseer is still farming at a similar rate to that of the Clockwork. He hasn't been in experience range for all of that, and Goretz in general is going to have to deal with the constant harass coming up from a Dazzle, from a Huskar. It's a hard lane for most offlaners. Although they probably won't kill him, they'll be able to keep him at arm's length.
Definitely, and they're keeping him really far back there. It's a nice job that they're doing it. Interestingly, this Dazzle has taken that Poison Touch at level 1. We've been seeing this more often, but I felt like for a long time, Dazzles were not even sort of touching that skill for most of the game, but feeling a little bit more comfortable with the Battle Dazzle style that we've been seeing. It is a pretty nice little slow, particularly once you actually end up getting it maxed out, because it applies the stun at the end of the duration, as well as a 66% slow throughout a decent portion of it. It's not bad. But it takes getting up to level 4 for that to be really a solid pickup there. And
I don't think he's going to invest into level 4, I'll be honest. Usually when you see this Poison Touch point, it's just the one value point to zone out the offlaner, and then he'll just commit towards the Shallow Grave and the heal. And I think this game is no exception. That stun is, although good when it latches, takes too much of an investment away from your other spells, and Shallow Grave and heal are too good to ignore, I want to say. He might even not skill up any more than that and go for stats instead of maxing it out, although I think after recent changes going for the actual max in all of your spells is more likely. Lena's going to die down towards bottom of the Clockwork, she gets isolated, and Dragonite dies to a double raise in mid, just like that. Big Red Machine find kills across the board, and I missed both of them. Already on tilt a little bit from all the technical issues, but hopefully that won't happen again. We're going to be back into this game, and Big Red Machine a commanding lead in all of the lanes. This is the exact opposite that we saw from game number 1. 27-11 on the Huskar, 22-8 on the Shadow Fiend. Even the Clockwork is out CSing the enemy offlaner quite convincingly at 15-2. So this is looking quite good for them. How do CIS Rejects pull this back into control?
I think pretty much what they need to do is keep really close eye on this Clockwork. It's such a difficult lane for the Lina, because he got that 20 extra movement speed advantage over her, even with the boots on both of them. It's really tough for the Lina to be able to get away, and she can't really run away to the jungle because Ursa isn't going to be able to keep up with that Clockwork either. Even though he does have a pretty good movement speed as well, it's still a little bit less than that Clockwork there at the 465. So he has a movement speed advantage over everybody in this lane. It can kind of run all over you, and that's the danger of picking a melee carry like Ursa here, who, while is pretty good and can slow if you land the Earth Shock, if you're close enough to land an Earth Shock, you're probably getting cogsed as well. So a really tough lane down there. I think that probably the rotations from the Winter Wyvern need to continue to come. And I haven't really seen, while they have been harassing the Shadow Fiend, they haven't been able to find the kill yet. So maybe rotate Lina over as well. It looks like they want to kill the Clockwork first, but I don't think that they're going to be able to find that kill.
Yeah, this is a level 6 hero too. Right now he doesn't have the mana to use his ultimate, but Flo's going to go all the way back to base, maybe pick up a bottle, or maybe he's going to decide to go for something else entirely. But no matter what it is, Flo is having a great time and will probably continue to have a really good time. Isolating the Winter Wyvern's hard. The Winter Wyvern, as long as she holds her Arctic Burn, will be able to fly out of those cogs and probably won't die to the Clockwork solo. And going for the Ursa, even though getting in range for the Earth Shock does mean that he's in range for Battery Assault, you never want to be in close quarters with the Ursa ever, especially now that Ursa's level 6 is online, so Clockwork can't kill him either. The hero that he's going to have his target on is always want to fly, and if he can isolate the Lina, that should be pretty easy pickings for the Clockwork. But for now, there's no real pressure on him to do anything. Flo can continue just sitting in this bottom lane, farm to the best of his ability, and it looks like his item of choice is going to be Force Staff this game, and I quite like it.
Certainly, it's going to be able to give him, if he does accidentally mess up the cogs there and trap the Ursa in there with him instead of pushing him away, it gives him an escape ability, because honestly, if he's in there with the Ursa, he is going to die. That hero just kills you so freaking quickly, and there's going to be a Splinter Blast on top of Flo. Is going to pop his cogs potentially a little bit prematurely, and I think that he's going to be able to walk away from this one. There's always the chance there that KS can jump on in, but not really going to be able to make a ton happen. As we talked about, the movement speed by Clockwork a little bit faster. He also has the advantage of being able to stun there as well. And Undying with a level 2 Tombstone is going to be sitting off in the jungle, waiting for the potential dive if it does come. But I don't think at this point we're going to be seeing CIS Rejects trying to do anything besides get Ursa this little bit of extra farm. And meanwhile, in the mid lane, Iceberg Dota trying to do what he can as well. I haven't seen him play a Dragon Knight so far, and he's been doing an okay job, but it's kind of a tough lane against that Shadow Fiend who can just keep on raising on out the lane.
I think he's doing about as you'd expect a Dragon Knight to do against a Shadow Fiend, especially considering Iceberg died to the SF. He's doing fine, but that's not going to win the game, just doing fine. They need to find some way to get an edge over the enemy team. That might be Roshan. In fact, that might be Roshan to be taken by either of these sides. Both Huskar and Ursa at this point are capable of soloing it out. And this...
Bot lane.
Yeah.
Oh, God, the TP with the hook, the one last right click was going to be enough. The Winter Wyvern ended up getting it. It looked like it was a Winter's Curse, or not, it's not a Winter's Curse, excuse me, Arctic Burn to slow down the Clockwork, and just wasn't able to pop the cogs to pop the Ursa away from him, and was able to get in close and take him on down there.
Yeah, and that is going to be a really nice kill onto an offlane that's been having a good time. Clockwork's not going to be shut down by that by any means, but it's still nice for CIS Rejects to get on the board, and is going to help them when it starts to getting momentum back under their feet. But the Shadow Fiend, as he's been farming up inside the woods, power farming it no less, he's going to have himself the two components towards the mechanism. Once they have the mech on the Shadow Fiend, I think Big Red Machine can start grouping up and never stop and just keep on going for these towers relentlessly. And there's not much that CIS Rejects can do about it, especially if they're offlane. Although he's going to have a mechanism at a good time, needs more than the Clockwork to contribute inside these fights. You kind of want maxed out Vacuum, and although the Ion Shell, especially combined with the Ursa, is very potent, should they be able to lock down some of these heroes and land a couple of stuns, it pales in comparison to the initiation range that you're going to get from the Clock. But maybe that's going to be remedied by the fact that they have a Blink Dagger up on this Ursa.
Yeah, certainly. He's been able to farm really, really effectively, and is going to be able to, considering he's in lane, he doesn't have to go for that Morbid Mask first, which means that you're going to be able to pick up that Blink that much quicker. I'm also going to mention over to the side here, always want to fly, catches that Slander, going to give him a few more right clicks, send him on his way back home. Huskar has an armlet and also is level 7 currently, about to be level 8. He is going to start to become a really big issue in this game, particularly if, as you talked about, they start grouping up with that Shadow Fiend as well. You know, Undying is getting the farm, he's getting the levels that he needs, he's going to have Flesh Golem up. This is really looking to be a terrifying timing attack if they do sort of end up working it out that way.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if CIS Rejects are ready for it, because it's coming sooner rather than later. The only other thing that could help Big Red Machine get that timing attack quicker is if they go for a smoke into Roshan, or if they pick up a medallion on the Dazzle. But for now, that smoke is going to be picked up by the Undying. They're going to group up, and it looks like they want to start looking to take some of these objectives. Also on that career is a Clarity for TMW and the mechanism, so not only is he going to have that mech, but he's going to have more than enough mana to sustain its usage as he groups up with the team. Smoked up with the Clockwork and the Undying, they're going to look for an aggressive move up towards top, or maybe just mid. Top tower looks like it's going to fall with or without this rotation, but this will absolutely secure it, and maybe we'll find themselves a kill on the Lina as well, who's sitting there, always want to fly, only wants experience here, but now he has an entire enemy team wrapping around him. They catch vision of him, flows there, hookshot is going to line up perfectly, and they don't even need the cogs to secure this one. One raise will connect, and Clockwork gets it with the Rocket Barrage. They'll TP into the tower with the Winter Wyvern, but the tier 1 has already dropped down to critical amounts of HP. In that absence of the Shadow Fiend in mid, maybe Dragon Knight can get some DPS out onto the tower, but it's probably not going to be nearly enough as the creep wave's still standing. And what's to stop Big Red Machine from going for this tier 2? Certainly not the Darks here, who's going to walk off and go into the jungle. They're going to try their best to look for the trades on the tier 2 towers and inside Roshan. KS is here. They spot him out with the Clockwork Flare, and KS is going to get bashed. He has no lifesteal on this Ursa, so it's incredibly hard for him to go for that play. They'll TP the Shadow Fiend down towards bottom as Huskar is left top. And right now, this is a difficult situation. Screen's going to get stunned in mid. They'll blink onto him. Ursa's going to rip apart the Undying. Not living up to his name there, and Huskar is going to TP back away from the Lina. So it looks like they will get a tier 1 tower in the end as trade for the tier 1 that they lost up top, as they're going to bring down mid. 2 to 3 is our kill score this game, is incredibly even.
Yeah, certainly. They've been able to really make this one work out for him. And it looks like we might be saying Vanscore, try to catch out Flo. Winter's Curse on top of him. He's in a lot of trouble. Oh, he's in there with the Ursa. That's not where you want to be. Requiem of Souls gets canceled by TMW. He changes his mind, doesn't want to try and make the return. Gets one raise on top of the Ursa. They know they're in there now. And Slander does not have level 6 yet, so no weave going to come out, but they are wrapping around. I don't know if this is the play that they necessarily want to make. No wall on the Darkseer either. He does have vacuum, is going to vacuum the Huskar up to the high ground, but he doesn't even care about that. Huskar is going to be able to try and jump onto Iceberg Dota, but he's TPing away, absolutely no problem. Requiem of Souls on top of the Ursa yet again, but enraged at the last time to dodge the damage. Not enough. That's going to be a kill for the Shadow Fiend with one last raise, and what looked really good at the start there for the Radiant on CIS Rejects, turn him back into the favor of Big Red Machine again, and if they get this Roche, this is where things can really start to go crazy for them.
Yeah, Roshan is an amount of income that you expect to have as an Ursa, and right now, this game is just so hard for him to get that Roshan because Big Red Machine have a great way to scout Roche, and they have great heroes at fighting inside such close quarters. The Undying Tombstone, although it wasn't super relevant inside that fight, it was dropped here after they got some kills and after CIS Rejects had mostly retreated. But not only that, but Huskar can take down Roshan just as quickly and just as reliably as Ursa. Maybe a little bit slower, but just as reliably is the bottom line. So Big Red Machine will be able to secure that for themselves. Undying is going to fall down in bottom lane as KS is able to jump onto him, but now the Huskar is here. Ursa does have it in range, going to turn onto the Huskar, but just can't get enough attacks through. Although right now it's not doing a lot of damage, those fire spears are going to burn down the bear. And that's going to be Big Red Machine to trade 1-for-1. Undying for Ursa is a trade that they'll accept, but it is also going to come at the cost of a tier 1 tower in top lane as Iceberg Dota with the rest of his dragon form will be able to get that tower destruction. So still not terrible for CIS Rejects. When you are in a situation where the enemy team has an Aegis and you don't really want to fight, you'll take trades like that most of the time. But Big Red Machine are still the team with momentum, and the Shadow Fiend and Huskar are getting to really critical items.
Certainly, and it looks like here to try and deal with this a little bit. Ooh, mid lane, TMW does need to be careful. It looks like to deal with this, they're going to try and get a Shadow Blade up on the Dragon Knight. This is going to allow them to initiate from a little bit further away. Flo is going to end up catching there. That's a Shadow Amulet, keeping him alive a little bit longer. That's actually huge that he has that. He's going to be able to just get away from this one in just a second. Battery Assault.
They have another cogs. Iceberg dies. Ooh, do they? Not in time. Iceberg's able to TP out. Nicely done. They didn't have anybody else there. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to pull that one off, but really good awareness coming out from Dragon Lord.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to die. I thought that the cogs were going to be able to be enough, but just a little bit too close. TMW now diving down onto the Darkseer. He's going to be able to chase here a little bit longer. Shadowblade up by Iceberg Dota now as well. That's going to be TMW taking a lot of damage. Immediately, wall down, Winter's Curse, everything thrown onto that Shadow Fiend, and he does end up going down. We do still have Huskar here trying to armlet toggle some of the damage from this tier 1 tower. Do they have enough to be able to catch him yet again? Dragon Tail is back up if they want to be able to make it happen. No, gets blocked by the creeps and is just going to opt to stop the push here. We'll see if they're going to be able to make anything else happen here. I like that the Darkseer's been able to pick up a level in wall as well. It feels like they can fight, and you know, the timing attack, then the real strong sort of synergy that you have out of these lineups, I feel like needs to take place with the Dazzle tossing out that weave as well. They need to be able to get either the bonus armor for themselves or the negative armor on their opponents.
Yeah, and right now those big tools that Big Red Machine have picked up aren't coming together cohesively. Right now, you'll see one of them get picked off, and although they'll take small engagements in isolation well, it always comes at a fairly even trade for CIS Rejects, and they're staying in this nicely. Although there's still a good chunk of gold behind the Shadow Fiend and Huskar, it's not going to mean too much of anything if they can keep up this pace. And they get a wraparound. They're going to find Flo on the backlines with an Invis Dragon Knight. Although he walks into a sentry, they have the Laguna Blade, and they blow the Clockwork sky high with Laguna Blade and a Breathe Fire to secure the kill. They will lose a tier 1 tower in the mid lane in trade for it, but right now, the only tier 1 that still stands is Big Red Machine's off lane tier 1, and that really doesn't mean much of anything, and probably will be taken pretty darn swiftly. So CIS Rejects are playing well, and at this point this game is close to dead even. The net worth advantage is 500 in the favor of CIS Rejects. In fact, CIS Rejects have an advantage in experience. This gold is in the pockets of their supports mainly.
Yeah, and it seems like it's sort of one of those situations at this point where the Huskar can kind of run in and jump at anybody, but they're just avoiding him. They're continuing to kite away from him. They don't want to necessarily fight if they don't have to. The only person I think that Huskar is really afraid of at this point in time is an Ursa right up in his face, but even a little ways away there, it looks like they're going to go and try and take him on out as well. Clockwork Hook in on top of KS. He's in the cogs with them, is going to be able to force staff away. What a great play there by Flo. Is able to bait out the Enrage as well, and now Huskar feels comfortable jumping in on top of him. Meanwhile, we're going to see push up in the top lane as well. This is going to be the Undying trying to come and contest this potentially. Does throw down the decay stacks as well, but they're going to be feeling comfortable pushing down this tier 2 tower here. A little bit scary still.
Yeah, right now Dragon Knight does not have that Elder Dragon form and probably won't be able to go any further than that when it comes to taking down the tower. But Iceberg Dota is going to Shadow Blade. I don't believe that was spotted out by the Dire Sentry, although they had a Sentry on the ground. They had no Obs vision behind there. So Dragon Knight has a full wrap under the tier 2 tower. They're going to dive onto Slander with Winter's Curse, Breathe Fire, and they'll be able to blow up the Dazzle. Vanscore getting the last hit. In fact, they didn't even use the Breathe Fire. Shadow Fiend's going to chase forward with the Yasha movement speed is pretty darn swift, but actually getting on top of Iceberg is very difficult, and the only hero the Big Red Machine have that can convincingly catch up is the Clockwork, at least close by. Huskar is down towards bottom lane, tangoing with Always Wanna Fly. The Aegis is going to expire. Huskar at a full HP mark, not even a comfortable spot for Huskar to be. His damage output's mitigated, but Always Wanna Fly is going to go down just the same, as we'll see ZXE with a killing spree. It's 7-7, however, and the kill score really feels like it's not translating that much when it comes to map control. The Golden Shadow Fiend and Huskar is nice, but when do those items become enough to where they're able to convincingly pressure tier 2s?
Yeah, that's really the question that you have to sort of ask yourself. And oh god, Iceberg Dota going in again. This could be another kill here in just a second. He does have a little bit of backup, but there is off to the side the Shadow Fiend as well as the Clockwork ready to jump in just a second. Are they going to be able to be here in time? There's the Soul Rip, the Mechanism pop as well. Suddenly this looks really bad here for CIS Rejects. Need to back away. Iceberg Dota trying to TP is going to be able to make his way out of there, but they get the kill on the Ursa, taking down that safe lane farming hero. Well done. Maybe they're going to be able to push it down here. There's certainly the potential for it, but losing the tier 2 up top yet again.
Yeah, more chip damage. This time it's going to be the Darkseer, cutting the creep wave with Iron Shell, and he's going to punch this one down if they don't respond to it almost immediately. Clockwork's going to madly ping it out. It looks like they've made the decision to trade tier 2 for tier 2. But in mid lane, the Shadow Fiend gets caught up by the Laguna Blade. Mechanism's going to help sustain. Iceberg is going to die in trade, and TMW still hasn't gone down. Lina will eventually be able to secure the kill, but at the cost of her own life. That's going to be CIS Rejects leaking a couple of kills, and important ones at that, especially in the Dragon Knight and Ursa. But that original jump out of the Undying was ill-fated. I don't really think that that's the play. Undying lives up to his name. He's incredibly tanky, incredibly hard to bring down, and they just underestimated the factor that there could be a Shadow Fiend behind him. If we take a look, Big Red Machine have mass amounts of sentries on their side of the map, so they knew that there probably wasn't any aggressive vision either, and CIS Rejects went into that blind. I think it's a good idea to keep on going aggressive, but not a good idea to keep on going aggressive when you don't know where the enemy is.
Certainly. The other thing to mention here as well is the Undying has gone for kind of an interesting skill build, one that I haven't seen very often. 3 points in Soul Rip, opting to max that out first. And I feel like a lot of the reason for this is Undying at this point in time is just sort of mainly, and the whole side of Big Red Machine is built around being able to sustain in a battle. And if you're able to kin out another heal there for your team, it makes a huge difference in terms of your ability to really deal a lot of damage there with both the Huskar as well as the Shadow Fiend. You want to be able to treat this Huskar, or excuse me, the Undying, a bit more like a heal-a-bot than you would imagine normally, considering oftentimes you end up seeing the decay maxed out on him instead.
Screen is going to have the Aghanim Scepter up as his first major item, and by that time he'll probably have both maxed. So it's probably, yeah, the right choice, and the mass amount of sustain from the Dazzle, the Mechanism, and the Undying is pretty huge. Smoke is going to pop, but I believe that was spotted out. Can they catch Vanscore? No! Hookshot was there from Flo. I think they knew what was happening, but unfortunately the supports were lined up poorly for that Clockwork to be able to kill off the Winter Wyvern. That would have been really clutch, but that's not going to end up happening. That would have been set up by this ward here. I believe they did spot out Winter Wyvern. At least activate the Glimmer Cape. I'm not sure if they knew for sure where he was, but now Big Red Machine are going to transition into a tier 2 tower push bottom, but they need to make sure that this goes unpunished. Darkseer Ursa and the Dragon Knight are all threatening mid. If this is a 1-for-1 tower trade, that's probably pretty good for CIS Rejects, and it looks like it probably will be. This is a double damage Dragon Knight trading for that tower, and the glyph is not available for the Dire team. So their tower is actually falling quicker, and CIS Rejects could potentially defend, although I think this is probably just going to be a 1-for-1 trade. Tier 2 in mid is going to fall almost simultaneously with the Tier 2 in bottom for the Radiant side, and both teams will walk away with a similar amount of map control offered. Both of his towers are very crucial when it comes to defending your own jungle. But CIS Rejects, since they already took the Tier 2 tower top, I believe that that would make the Tier 2 tower in mid mean all the much more. Big Red Machine are, I don't know, trying to play aggressively, trying to transition this, but now they're going to get jumped. The Dazzle can't even get a shallow grave up before Chaos rips him a new one. This Ursa's doing way too much damage, has the ultimate up and running. Will BKB out of that halberd from the Huskar? Will the armlet toggles be enough? Not with the vacuum canceling all that, and Chaos still survives. Cold Embrace will keep the Ursa in fit fighting shape as they chase forward with a hasted invised iceberg. Looking to catch out Screen. Diving this deep for the Undying under normal circumstances would be ill-advised, but this is only in the Undying. The rest of his team has already fallen. Although probably still won't succeed, they're going to try their darndest, but I think it's probably better that CIS Rejects back up, but Ursa has different ideas entirely. They're going to kill off Screen under the shadow of his Tier 3 tower, and that's a full 5-man wipe.
That was just about the worst initiation that you could hope for out of Big Red Machine. Really, really unfortunate there. They lose the Dazzle at the start of the fight, as you mentioned. On top of that, the Undying isn't there to be able to start tossing on out the Tombstone at the very beginning. No soul rips, no heals, no nothing. They're able to, after they take down the Dazzle, control the Huskar and immediately take him on out. It was just everything that could possibly go wrong in the fight. And CRS Rejects able to make it happen. You know, it's not necessarily, I don't think that... I think that pretty much what it came down to was that you saw as soon as the TP came on back from the Shadow Fiend, you knew he was going to be out of the fight. They TP'd back the Undying as well, and then they were sandwiched between the, or rather, CIS Rejects were sandwiched between Big Red Machine, but they turned that into the ability to clamp down on one side, take away all of that damage, and it was just a really well-executed team fight by CIS Rejects. Really, really impressively done.
13-10 is going to be our kill score, and this game is starting to swing in the favor of CIS Rejects. 5,000 net worth in their side, 5,000 experience. Although this is an advantage that Big Red Machine can't fight into, it's going to be an advantage that's hard to fight into. Silver Edge is done on the Dragon Knight, and that is so bad if you're the Huskar. You're going to take away Huskar's survivability tool and his main damage steroid in that Berserker's blood. So this is going to be some very difficult up-and-coming fights until Huskar gets his BKB. However, to purge that break effect off. Right now, Dragon Knight has a wrap on the enemy team, will spot them out, and he has an Invis rune on top of that Silver Edge, so not only can he get in, but he can also use the break on whoever he wants to. Clockwork is going to drop the cogs, but get light striked up. Case is going to jump in as the Dragon Knight eviscerates the Dazzle towards the north. Look at the vacuum back onto two. Laguna Blade thrown out, hardly does any damage. Light Strike again going to catch out the two main damage dealers. Screen is going to be eaten apart by that bear, and Chaos is going to find another target to go on. This time it is the Huskar, but with that Tombstone stack, have so many zombies, he's going to go into fan score. The Huskar is man fighting it like a champ. Will end up going down. Iceberg is so slow. 5 stacks of that zombie goo on him. I'm not sure what you call it. TMW is too low to win this fight outright, but he's going to land a handful of raises. No detection for the Iceberg. Now going to turn around with the Dragon Tail as well as with that Silver Edge hit. Double kill for Iceberg. Looking for the TP out. Does Clockwork have another flare? Not for 9 seconds. So Dragon Knight will survive. And the only survivors in that fight were Dragon Knight and Clock. An absolute bloodbath and around that Roshan pit. But Big Red Machine get a better gold exchange.
You know, that right there, it's again one of those situations where the team fight went a lot better, and a lot of the reason for that was because the Tombstone was able to be leveled right up on the top cliff there. It got its full duration. It was a big impact throughout the whole course of it. But then the key component was that the Dragon Knight was able to find and execute the Dazzle right at the start of that. So throughout the whole course, you're expecting to see a shallow grave on the Huskar. I don't know if they've actually been able to even have a shallow grave up on the Huskar to be able to keep him alive. So it looks to me like CIS Rejects are executing a little bit more efficiently. If they're going to try and make this play for the Roshan, they need to put a sentry ward around the area so that way they can catch out Iceberg Dota as he's scouting out throughout the whole team fight, because that's what's really turned the tide of this game consistently.
Yeah, it's this Dragon Knight, just being able to find those jumps with the Shadow Blade, and now Huskar's going to jump in. Maybe this is the fight for them, but they break him. The Laguna Blade does way more damage than Huskar anticipated because of that Shadow Blade effect. Screen is going to die. The Huskar gets one armlet toggle off, but now is stuck inside the wall, stuck with an Ursa, and now Ursa's going to stick onto Flow. They get 2 races connect onto 4 enemy heroes, but TMW is stuck in the Winter's Curse and can't do anything. 4 heroes will hit the deck. The only survivor is the Dazzle, and I'm not sure for how long. This Ursa has no respect for your towers. Do they have a way to cancel that TP? No. So Slander is going to live back, cancels the TP, and looks to turn on Goretz. But with the Cold Embrace will survive, and everybody will walk their way home, except for Roshan, who's also going to die. Huge victories for CIS Rejects, as they not only take a great team fight, but take the Roshan immediately after.
Yeah, this was just a case, again, of a really solid team fight initiation. CIS Rejects doing what they need to do. They're looking really, really impressive, and their decision-making, everything, every component of their gameplay right now has been incredibly solid. If you take a look as well at the CS, it's all looking good for them, and I think that with this Roshan pickup here as well, they're going to be able to jump on in here. I mean, they had a better team fight there out of Bidrag Machine than the past 2 ones that they ended up engaging in. Maybe not better than the second one, but by that point there was already this huge gold lead going into the favor of CIS Rejects, and now looking to be in a little bit of a dangerous situation. As you mentioned, that break mechanic can just destroy the Huskar in his ability to sustain.
Always Want to Fight doesn't need an Aghanim Scepter, apparently. You have the Dragonite to bolster the damage output coming out from CIS Rejects, and I believe there was a Splinter Blast, Laguna Blade, and a Breathe Fire that all connected right as soon as that break hit, and Huskar evaporated. They finally did get a Shallow Grave on Huskar, so he was able to stay in the fight a little bit longer, but not nearly long enough to get his damage output through. Big Red Machine are still putting up a fight, but now that major objectives have been taken by CIS Rejects, it does get a lot harder, and their draft doesn't function that well from behind. Even Shadow Fiend, as far as the hero is concerned, really benefits from the fact that he's able to flash farm and get ahead of the enemy mid. But right now it's the Dragonite with a 2k advantage in gold, and honestly, I'd rather have the Dragonite in my team with the Assault Cuirass and Silver Edge than TMW with the Blink Mech Sanj and Yasha. His items feel a little bit more linear, and the mechanism has kind of already fallen off. CIS Rejects have too much control on the situations inside these fights.
Well, and again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, the being able to have the good vision, being able to know where that Dragonite is, and have some idea of, you know, all right, is he on top of me right now? We need to lay down a Sentry Ward. And I think that pretty much whenever Big Red Machine is together, they need to have a Sentry Ward down around them, because otherwise you're going to get that break mechanic off on top of Huskar. And if you just place one down, just one Sentry Ward, you're going to be able to scout him on out. Oh, is he going to end up going down here?
Probably not. This is a good movement from the Shadow Fiend. He's going to cut the creep wave, although that is a very risky movement to make. I think it's a calculated risk. You don't expect somebody to be sitting there, although the Darkseer walked past there just a while ago. He wants to join the rest of his team, so that is going to slow down this push. Right now, the creep wave that CIS Rejects have is the only creep wave they're going to get for quite a while, but it's enough to disable backdoor protection. This Dragonite's doing so much damage to the towers. They smoke up on the backlines. If nothing else, this is going to make Big Red Machine scared of the fact that they could be jumped from almost anywhere. Now the Dragonite's going to work on high ground again. Big Red Machine need to go, and go soon, and that hero that can make that jump is the Clockwork or the Huskar. Who's going to pull the trigger first? The Clockwork has a huge wraparound, but Flo might even be a little too far away for the initial jump. He wants to catch somebody on the retreat, but how do Big Red Machine make somebody retreat? I don't know.
Yeah, they're not going to be afraid to be able to jump right the heck on into this. And Huskar's in the area. He's still waiting for his opportunity to jump forward, but honestly, he doesn't want to run into an Ursa or a Dragonite right at the start of this team fight. Maybe he's going to be able to tank it on through to deal enough damage to the Ursa because he wants to save Enrage for a little bit later once the Fury Swipe stacks are all the way up, but it's still just such a dangerous skill to jump on top of. They do end up, man, they're going to end up jumping on over for this Shadow Fiend if he's not careful, but with a blink, I think that he's probably going to be okay.
Yeah. Shadow Fiend right now is playing the game that he has to, and that is keeping these lanes pushed out, make sure that they don't get choked. It's a very dangerous position to be in, but he's making the right moves, and he is backing off as soon as the enemies jump him. And as soon as I say that, he's going to run right into Iceberg, but another blink away by the Shadow Fiend. Looking for the TP out. Can they get the Dragon Tail? Does they have it primed? They have it! And the vision onto TMW should be the end of Shadow Fiend's life, and with it, their chances of defending are much harder. The Shadow Fiend has buyback available, but he's down for 70 seconds, and he really doesn't want to have to buy back. His item progression would be absolutely shot. Iceberg is already in a good situation relative to the Shadow Fiend. It only gets better from here. They'll put an end to that pesky split pushing that the Shadow Fiend has done. I think that's a calculated risk, though, from Big Red Machine. The only reason that they have held high ground for this long is because the Shadow Fiend cuts the creep wave down here, cuts the creep wave in mid, and in general has to make those risky moves. So I don't think you can knock the Shadow Fiend's play at all. I think he's making the right decision, but it's a risky decision, and it's something that is going to be punished.
Yeah, KS doesn't end up being able to catch there. That's the vacuum wall back on top of him. Screen trying to run away yet again. Winter's Curse on top of Huskar. He's going to end up falling in just a second. Shallow Grave, though, keeping him alive yet again. TMW is off to the side after he ended up buying back, but he is just getting run through by Iceberg Dota as well as Always Want to Fly. Huskar is able to take out the Winter Wyvern. Is it going to be able to be enough? He's actually starting to become this tanky, disgusting monster. KS going down as well. The Ursa falls, but Huskar is going to die as well. That's going to be a turnaround here as well. Iceberg Dota and Always Want to Fly chasing after Flow now. Two of their teammates, three of their teammates are dead, and there's the Dazzle Shallow Grave. One more time again, Huskar buyback is going to jump on top of Always Want to Fly first, I would imagine. Never mind, Iceberg Dota is going to end up getting lifted on up by the Yule Scepter. Light Strike Array and Dragon Tail are going to keep Huskar contained, but for how much longer? He's going to be able to turn this one back around now. Cogs catch onto two. That's going to be the pushback yet again. Iceberg Dota is going to not be the one that's jumped on set. Always Want to Fly, and they're able to clean up house.
But it is a costly defense, costing them 4 buybacks for their team. Shadowfiend, Clockwork, Huskar, and Dazzle. The only one who didn't was the Undying for Big Red Machine. They hold, but it is not going to look good when it comes to their item progression. The Dragon Knight able to get the Clockwork kill after the Shallow Grave with the lethal tick damage on his ultimate as he's walking back towards the base. Grave unfortunately didn't do much for Slander. Although the Huskar is able to join that fight after the buyback and does get kills, it was for sure worth it for Big Red Machine to make that play and make those buybacks. His item progression is in the same spot where it was before that fight began, and on the flip side of the coin, Dragon Knight now is sitting on a casual 4,000 gold in the bank. The supports even, you have a Blink Dagger and a Glimmer Cape on this Winter Wyvern. CS rejects are getting scarier, whereas Big Red Machine are stuck in the same situation they were before that high ground push happened. And next time around, they're not going to have those buybacks available. This is a 5 to 6 minute window for CIS rejects where they can do whatever they want or try to make those big plays and go for another set of barracks. Big Red Machine have kept themselves in the game, but they haven't advanced their position when it comes to winning it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a little bit tough. I will say that the BKB pickup for the Huskar helps a whole heck of a lot. And likewise, you see that the Dragon Knight here isn't going to be picking up a BKB himself. Instead, he went for the Demon Edge and probably going to be building into an MKB, I would imagine, at this point in time. The flip side of that, though, is that we do see that the Huskar has been able to pick up a Heaven's Halberd. So this next set of itemization, while it's not as big of an item, the Heaven's Halberd, I think, does help a lot in terms of both Huskar's ability to keep himself away and away from the damage being dealt to some extent by everybody except for Dragon Knight, but he can also keep the hits from coming away from him by the Dragon Knight. So the disarm there is pretty big, and the fact that Dragon Knight doesn't have BKB is also pretty big. We'll see how it ends up playing out. It's going to come down to execution again, but I think that it's something that we need to be cognizant of. And Undying now picking on up the Aghanim Scepter as well. These are some scary items that are starting to come out here by Big Red Machine.
Actually, the Dragon Knight's going to decide to go for a Daedalus. Now, this is the third option that he goes for, and I'll go through the pluses and cons of each one. BKB is really nice because it'll be able to purge off that Heaven's Halberd effect most notably, but outside of the Heaven's Halberd effect, there's not much the BKB offers him, so I think Iceberg's going to reject that. The Halberd is going to mean that MKB would be really nice for Iceberg to kill off the Huskar, but I think he's made the decision that he doesn't need to necessarily kill off the Huskar if the rest of his team is dead. So the Daedalus is going to be the better option to kill off all of the auxiliary heroes inside these fights, and they already have the Silver Edge break effect, and although BKB will be able to purge that off once, these fights are lasting long enough to where Dragon Knight should have a second use of that Silver Edge. Vanscore gonna bump into a whole mess of enemy heroes, but will be able to blink away, has the Arc of Burn, has the Glimmer Cape, and will survive. This game is it's still up in the air for grabs, but Big Red Machine need to do something quick to change the status quo and to change the outcome of, because right now CIS Rejects have an upward slope when it comes to the advantage. They're getting a net worth up to 20,000 in their favor and 12,000 in experience. If this current state of the game remains, Big Red Machine will lose just by the nature of being out farmed and by getting more items quicker. They're going to buy smokes on CIS Rejects side, and unfortunately Big Red Machine have just failed the smoke, but now the fight around Roshan commences. This is where Big Red Machine could definitely have a big hurrah.
Certainly, and it might end up being the case, but they need to place on some type of, there's the sentry ward that they needed. Looks like Iceberg Dota isn't going to end up going for it, though. Requiem of the Souls comes on out. Not sure if it's going to be enough damage. Huskar is up in the middle of everybody. BKB is popped as well. They're going to start to take on down Goretz here. He's going to take down really quickly, but now they're turning on to Iceberg Dota. Cogs is pushing him away one more time. Again, there is the Ags Laguna Blade on top of the Huskar, but he's still staying alive throughout this. That was a freaking dead undying, turning on his own team. He's going to end up going down as well. Always want to fly, surviving as well through the cold embrace, but the Shadow Fiend is the one that's really going to be able to turn the tide. That is a full team wipe right now for Big Red Machine, completely turning around and blowing open this game.
CIS Rejects find themselves in a really close engagement where they're not the ones starting it. We saw the sentry on the ground, so Shadow Blade wasn't able to be used effectively by the Dragonite, and he wanted to hold that so they could kill off the Huskar. But the Huskar was left towards the side of that fight. When they go for the Winter's Curse, they drop it on the Undying, and as you said, it was a very dead Undying. Huskar was absolutely demolishing his teammate, but CIS Rejects just didn't have enough gas in the tank because of the amount of kiting and the amount of, I don't know, just constant spells thrown out by Big Red Machine to keep the Dragonite and Ursa at bay, constant Force Staff, the Cogs in the middle of the engagement, and probably most importantly that Halberd from the Huskar that the Dragonite had no way to deal with. This is going to be an Aegis and Cheese going for Big Red Machine, and just like that, they have found that fight that's going to start flipping this game on its head, down to a 10,000 advantage for CIS Rejects, and experience is almost dead even. And then Shadowfeed Requiem, even though it didn't do a lot of damage, decreased a lot of the damage output that the Dragonite and the Ursa were able to initially do inside that fight, so it was still very crucial. Hookshot going to miss in the mid lane, so Flo won't be able to find this jump, and right now Big Red Machine are isolated, but now they have the Huskar, and he's going to dive under the tier 2 towers, why not? He has an Aegis, he doesn't have any regard for his life or the lives of anybody else in the enemy team. Lotus Orb's going to place on the Laguna Blade, the Lina, and Huskar survives, healed up by the Undying. Poor Lina, I don't really expect that very often, but they will end up backing off, taking out this tier 2 tower, and now Blink Advance Score is going to get the Winter's Curse onto the Huskar. Even if they get him killed once, all that that's going to do is to take the Aegis off of Huskar, and taking off that Aegis is so very difficult when they don't have the DK in position. Big Red Machine are now the ones in the driver's seat. This is very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just this itemization again. You don't have those BKBs up on him, and you know, continually you're seeing Huskar getting his blink interrupted as well. Not Huskar, excuse me, Ursa getting his blink interrupted. Needs to be really careful here. He can't get on top of these heroes the way that he needs to, and I think that again, that Requiem of Souls that you talked about, that was a huge component of it also. It looks like Big Red Machine are not wanting to push their luck too much further. They found themselves, as you said, in a commanding position, but they don't want to push their luck too far. Maybe hoping to bait somebody out here, and then the reinitiation could occur, but I don't know. I think that also this Undying, now that he has this Aghanim Scepter, is going to be able to start not only taking away the extra health that all these heroes have. I mean, 10 strength is a lot of HP and damage to take off of this Dragonite. It's not negligible at all.
For sure, and 28 to 24, the game is starting to equalize a bit, and as we're seeing, even though Dragonite in theory has a mass amount of damage, he's just not able to effectively use it, and he's gone for a very, I won't say glass cannon build. The Assault Cuirass is going to help out his effective HP, as is the Sange built into the Silver Edge, but a build that is definitely workaroundable by Big Red Machine with the way they've picked up their items, and yeah, the Dragonite just hasn't had a good fight for a while, but should there be a situation where the DK comes in secondarily, and they have a good vacuum back, the splash damage over a vacuum from the Darks here could be absolutely huge in some of these up-and-coming fights, so right now, things have slowed down. Big Red Machine, although they're still in a decent situation in this game, keep in mind that they have lost the entirety of their mid lane barracks, and that is going to constantly make things more difficult. And what else might make things difficult is if they'll catch the Shadow Fiend down towards bottom. Look for the TP, no way for the Darkseer to cancel it himself, and nobody in range to cancel that, unfortunately. Had he had the Refresher Orb that he is building into, maybe a Refresher Vacuum could have been pretty slick there, but for now, everything is going to start equalizing again, and in that sense, CIS Rejects are going to feel a lot more comfortable. As soon as this Aegis expires, I think think that CIS Rejects have an opportunity to again go on the aggressive.
Well, and likewise, I feel like at this point in time, the onus is on BRM to try and make a move. They're not opting to do it. They backed on out in the mid lane, and I felt like that was a little bit of a strange move at that point in time, and I still do. I guess that they don't feel comfortable pushing up into high ground. They want to try and build and secure a farming advantage, but considering they're already behind in farm and they're not really being able to deny out the enemy jungle, like they're not, CIS Rejects aren't farming their own jungle exceptionally well. They do actually clear it all out right now, but it's one of those things where I feel like you need to be able to try and make the move happen. You have the Aegis, you have the advantage right now. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to get the next one. Push on out and try and make a move across the map, and it looks like they might be opting to try and do that now with Huskar moving forward, but still a little bit spread out from his team. Shadow Fiend up in the top lane is, jump on in again, are actually going to be able to catch on top of this Dragonite here. He is not revealed quite yet. There it is, the reveal, jumping on top of him, and he falls down so quickly right there. Vanscore as well as KS are going to have to move away from here unless they end up being spotted. It doesn't look like they are going to spot him. Now the lanes are going to get pushed out to the side. Lena's trying to push on up top, but that just means that nobody's going to be back home to defend this tier 3s. I think that they're going to feel completely comfortable going high ground here.
They're definitely going to try, but Darkseer's also pushing bottom lane, and this is, at best case scenario, going to trade evenly for Big Red Machine, and, well, Lena's already back. They have the Light Strike ready to connect onto the Huskar's. Aegis is going to expire soon. Shadow Fiend dives pretty deep into the base to get a vacuum back onto 2. Screen is going to be caught out inside the wall. Huskar is going to get Laguna Blade dropping under the tier 4 as we'll lose his Aegis. Flo is going to drop his Ghost Scepter, and we'll turn Ethereal, and with it, will survive against the Ursa. 4 staff away. Dragonite's finally able to do some damage. They have the Halberd, however, onto him, and Huskar is going to turn, but Glimmercape been surged away. The Dragonite will survive. The Ursa's going to take a couple of these Flaming Spheres. Vanscore is going to be dropped low, but Big Red Machine are making no big ground when it comes to taking out these structures. Tier 3 tower is down to a third of its HP. They'll heal up the Huskar, a couple more Dragon Slaves to run. Now Yule Scepter on the SF to bring down the tier 3, but they really need this Rex, and they really need it now. Dragonite's going to jump in. They're going to break the Huskar. The Lotus Orb came a little too late, but Huskar's still just not taking enough damage. She doesn't have Satanic up yet, but will have it in 4 seconds. Leaps down to low ground onto the Ursa, but they can smash onto the Huskar and will be able to break down the Giant. Flo is caught inside the cogs and will go down as the Shadow Fiend is now going to be pursued by Always Wanna Fly and company, trying to get in range for this Yule Scepter. They have the Vision for it. They don't even need the Yule, so land Light Strike right freehand and jump onto him with the Ursa as CIS Rejects completely hold and then some. They're going to secure a gem for themselves, and Big Red Machine, all of the ground that they got from getting that Roshan is now completely gone. And while they were fighting, the creeps take down the tier 3 and bottom, so just in a vacuum, that's going to be an even trade when it comes to structures, and now the range breaks are going to fall, and soon after melee, if they don't do something now, buyback from the Huskar, they want to fight this, they want to contest this, but can they?
I don't think that they're going to be able to. They don't have buyback on any of the other heroes here, and you end up seeing right now, you know, Dazzle is the only other hero that's going to be here. Iceberg Dota moving forward. He does have the break mechanic up if he wants to use it. That's going to be a Dragon Tail on top of Huskar as well. He's taking a lot of damage here. He's going to be able to BKB that away. Jumps on top of Iceberg Dota one more time again, but that's going to be the Winter's Curse. That's going to be a dead Huskar, and honestly, that's probably going to be GG as well. Absolutely fabulously done by CIS Rejects. This bottom barracks is going to go down. Mechanism up as well. GG gets called by screen. Really, really solid play by CIS Rejects to take that 2-0.
Yeah, if we take a look at the graph, the early advantage was there for Big Red Machine. They started well in their lanes, but they didn't transition, and a lot of that comes down to them not being able to find the initiations. Usually you'd expect the Clockwork to be making the majority of the jumps, but Clockwork was usually the second hero into the fray. It was more often than not Iceberg on the Dragonite, and I think for CIS Rejects, Iceberg was my MVP, at least, on the Windrunner in game number 1 and the Dragonite in game number 2, completely controlling the pace of everything. And although there was a couple of fights that went poorly, maybe because of the Daedalus pickup, maybe not, who knows what that would have looked like had he gone for different item choices. As a whole, they played well. Not to take anything away from Big Red Machine, they put up a good fight, and it was very entertaining games to watch, and now we're going to have a couple more after the fact. Big Red Machine are going to be going on to the Zubu stream number 1, and I can't remember exactly who they're going to be playing, and we'll be here with more games from the GameShow Global Esports Cup CIS Qualifier LAN in just a minute. I've been Grant SV, he's been Lyrical Gangster. You can find us on Twitter under both of those names, and we'll be back to you in just a minute. See you soon.